guys, so today is one of those wonderful days that inevitably come around when I haven't been looking after myself as well as I should be, where I'm experiencing some symptoms in my digestive system that are not only unpleasant, they are really unpleasant, and they're actually making it hard for me to focus on what I'm doing, which is editing one of my videos. And so I thought I'm gonna use this opportunity to demonstrate to you in real time and in real life for me. And that's the thing, even though this is my area of knowledge, it doesn't mean that I don't fall prey to the same things that every other person would fall prey to. Just because I have the knowledge doesn't mean that I act according to it every day, all day. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect, and I really don't like labels like that. I don't like looking at things in such a black and white light. Anyway, my point is that I am just human. And so when I'm giving you information, I'm not trying to talk down to anyone. I don't want to create the impression that I've fixed myself to the point where I don't need to follow my own advice anymore, or that everything's hunky-dory now. This is not reality. Reality is that most of the time, digestive issues took a long time to develop, and they can take a long time to be healed or cured or whatever. And really, I don't believe that there is a point where you could say, I'm cured now. For me, that would be like saying, I don't need to live healthy now. I've done a detox. I never need to detox again now, regardless of the fact that we detox constantly. Anyway, that's just what the body does when you allow it to. But again, I digress. So I'm human. I'm not perfect. But what do I do on days where I'm really feeling it? I don't experience it a lot anymore. For the most part, I do follow my own advice, and I try to listen to my body. And also I understand that if I don't do the things that I know to be good for me, or I partake in things that I know are going to be taking away from my health and going to be compromising my gut and putting it under pressure, I do it knowingly. So, which makes it maybe so much worse. But again, I don't like to step in those kind of traps, because they really are traps. That way of thinking is just not helpful. So for me, it's really as simple as, here is the information. What am I going to do with it? This is the situation. What am I going to do about it? Looking back and judging and blaming, and that is just, it creates shame and guilt. Blame creates shame and guilt. It doesn't help anyone. It's not a useful state to be in. So we'll go kind of past all that stuff. Notice that if you need to, higher shame, higher blame, right? And then move on and do what you need to do to actually get yourself to a better point. So right now, on a scale of 0 to 10, my indigestion and discomfort in this area is probably, if 10 was really bad, it's probably a 5. Now, if I've never experienced digestive distress before, I would say it's a 8. It's really, I don't feel very good. I actually feel better now, but that's to come. But because I have experienced probably almost the worst that it can get, I can put it in context now and understand, actually, it could be so much worse. I've been feeling so much worse. And so I'm probably more at a 4 or 5, but it's not great. Most days I'm at a 0. I feel good, feel pretty normal. I'm not noticing at least any symptoms. And again, here I do want to acknowledge that having symptoms and noticing symptoms, not the same thing. Some of us might be living in a physiological state where we actually don't feel very good, but we don't even realize it because it's just so normal to us. We don't even notice it. We don't even know how good we are meant to feel. Anyway, it's just become so normalized because we see it all around us that it's just normal to have burping, gas, and bloating after a meal. It's not. Common, but it's not normal. So what was the situation? The situation was, I've been a little bit naughty then, if you want to use that terminology, And now I'm paying the price. So I didn't do it blindly. I did it willingly, knowingly, and sometimes it's fine, and this time it's not. And I can say that what I'm also noticing when I check inward is that I feel like a little bit not right. I feel tired, and I've noticed that I've been feeling a bit tired for the last few days. It's been difficult to get up. I'm having a little bit of a crash quite early on in the morning. And also, I've had a little bit of a scratchiness on my chest. Sometimes I notice that when I'm experiencing indigestion for a day or 2 days in a row, that I'll develop an ulcer on my tongue. Oh, that sounds disgusting. Like a cold sore. Is that a cold sore? And so that's a pattern that I've been able to recognize for me. Now, okay, it's taking me a long time to get to what I'm actually doing this video about. So the symptom that I'm experiencing is indigestion. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling bloated. I'm feeling this sensation in my throat. It's not quite pain, but it's certainly uncomfortable, and I don't like it. It feels like I can't swallow properly, which is a symptom that I remember from a long time back, especially except that it was a lot worse. A little bit of burning maybe, and just kind of I feel like I want to burp, but I'm not burping. So ladylike. So what did I do about it? Now, there's a few different things that you can do, but here's what I did today. And I thought I'm just going to share with you what I did, and then I'm going to share with you how effective it has been for me. And I want to share with you some caveats or some warnings, for lack of a better term, if you go this route. So for every way that you choose to treat a symptom, you've got to understand that you are just treating a symptom most of the time if you are just doing one thing to get immediate or quick, effective relief. But you do need to understand that for every option that you choose, every way that you choose to treat that symptom that you notice, there'll be an impact and potentially an unintended, but inevitable sometimes impact. So it's just, again, information, being able to use information and think critically and don't do anything stupid. So what I chose to do is I chose to go the apple cider vinegar route. I like to use this. It's effective for me now. 5 years back when I was really struggling, it didn't seem to work for me, and it burnt my stomach when I did it, and it burnt my throat. So for me, it was not the right remedy or the right approach. But now that I've built up my mucosal lining and my digestive tract, I can tolerate it really well. I know that it actually is good for me as well. There's no negative side effects because I've dealt with my SIBO that I used to have, or the SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so the fact that it's a fermented liquid is not something that I have to be overly concerned about. So what I just did about half an hour to 35, 40 minutes ago is I went to my pantry. I got out my apple cider vinegar. I have my brands that I really like to use, but whatever it is, make sure that it's organic and that it's raw and unfiltered, because that has what is called the mother in it, and that is what makes it so beautifully healing, healthy, and useful. So what you can do if you want to go this route is what I did. Okay, so what I then did is I measured out about 2 tablespoons. This is what I use for myself. It is not what I would recommend for you. I would need to understand your individual situation to be able to make a recommendation like that. I am going to finish this video with a recommendation for you. Otherwise, shooting this video would have no use to you. So I took 2 tablespoons and I measure a ratio of 1 tablespoon, or 1 to 1. So 1 water to 1 apple cider vinegar. So I had 2 tablespoons of water mixed with 2 tablespoons apple cider vinegar. I know from experience that I can tolerate that well, and that is the most effective. So that ratio for me is the most effective. What I then did is I paid attention to how it felt going down, and I continued to pay attention to how it felt once it got into my stomach. I noticed that it did burn a little bit. It's not something that I have to worry I've now caused irreparable damage to myself. But it's a useful thing to note because it's telling me, right, there's another symptom, there's another sign that all is not well in there. My mucosal lining seems to be compromised. There seems to be some kind of inflammation happening in there, because normally I wouldn't feel the vinegar hitting my stomach. You shouldn't feel when you drink a sip of wine. For those of us that do like to drink wine, yes, I drink wine. If you feel when you swallow raw garlic, vinegars, garlics, chilies, things that can create heat, it's quite astringent, like an acid. If you're feeling that in your stomach, then you're not going to be wanting to do a one-to-one solution. You might not even want to do apple cider vinegar. You might want to take a step back and do lemon. Oh, there's a bird outside my window. So when I ingested the apple cider vinegar water solution or dilution, I noticed a slight burning and discomfort in my throat, and I noticed that I could feel it when I hit my stomach. When it hit my stomach, it hurt a little bit. It burnt a little bit. Not quite hurt, but it burnt a little bit. When you eat things like chili, vinegars, hot sauces, wine, you shouldn't feel once it hits your stomach. You have a really thick mucosal barrier there that is meant to protect you from being able to feel that, just as you shouldn't feel your stomach acid burning you. If you have an ulcer, which is a compromise of that stomach mucosal lining, then you might feel that. So it's not a good thing. It is more than likely indicating to you that mucosal lining has been compromised. Anyway, so for me, it's just, again, information. I haven't just irreparably damaged my stomach, but it is information that is useful for me. I know that it can get much worse than that, but I also know that I shouldn't be feeling it at all. So I noticed that. Right, okay, I can use that information to make further inferences, to understand what's going on better, and to make better decisions going forward. So the next thing that I did was I set my alarm, because I was quite interested to really track how long it takes me to notice the effectiveness, if I feel that it is effective at all. And so I set it for 30 minutes. When 30 minutes went off, I would say that the symptoms that were at a 5 probably went down to a 4, which is, it might not sound like a lot, but when you feel really poorly, that one small difference, that little bit of improvement can actually be quite a big deal. It can be the difference between you being able to function, do your work, think about something other than how you feel, and not being able to. So I've gone down to a 4, and then I set my alarm for another 30 minutes, just went off, and now I'm happy to say that it's gone down to a 3. So I can still notice it there. So what I'm going to be doing is, for the next day, 2 days, 3 days, is generally how long it takes for me to go back to my homeostasis to normal, where I don't notice how bad I'm feeling. Is I'm just going to be a little bit more cautious about the foods that I eat and drink. So I'm going to be careful with caffeine and not have any caffeine. I still might have some mild decaf coffee, watered down decaf coffee. I'm not here to tell you what you're allowed and not allowed to do. I don't even do that with myself. I tell myself, Ansi, remember that if you go and have an espresso, you're going to pay for it, and it's going to take you that much longer to get better. And remember that it's not just a feeling. It actually does impact your health. It cascades to other body systems. And down the track, it's not a good thing, because it does all accumulate. Anyway, rolling it back in. What I might do now is go and do another shot. So this time I might just do 1 tablespoon, one tablespoon water, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar, and that will probably bring me back to a 2. So on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being feeling really disgusting, I'm a 3 now. I was a 5. I had the dilution. It took me to a 4. Another 30 minutes later, I noticed it took me to a 3. Now I'm going to go and do a tablespoon of water, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and I will come back to you in another half an hour and let you know where I'm at then. And hopefully it'll be a 2. How you can use this information is in this way. If you're experiencing reflux or indigestion, not heartburn, indigestion. So what I mean by that is bloating in your stomach, gassiness, feeling like food's just sitting there, feeling like it's pressing up into your throat, not a burning feeling in your throat or your chest. Okay, this is quite important. If you're feeling a burning feeling, don't do this. If you're experiencing those symptoms and you want to try the apple cider vinegar dilution, go ahead and do it, but start low and slow. This is a good principle all around whenever you try something new, supplement wise, diet therapy wise, even, I mean, just generally in life, actually, it's probably good advice, but low and slow. So for you, that would mean a teaspoon to a teaspoon. Yes, start really small. It doesn't look like a lot, but just always err on the side of caution, because the last thing that I want to happen for you is for you to actually aggravate things and make it worse, because we are all individuals. We have our own background of how our body got to the place that it is. And so how you respond to something might not be the same as how I respond, might not be the same as how someone else responds. So the smart thing to do is to start low and take it slow. That is called titrating. When you go low and then go up and see how it feels. Go up and see how you respond. Go up. And that's way, if you need to go back down again and you just find the optimal level for you. I have found my optimal level, which is 2 to 2 tablespoons. So do a teaspoon, wait half an hour, see how you feel. Do another teaspoon to a teaspoon, see how you feel. If you notice a burning and it's intolerable, then make sure that you have a glass of water with about a half a teaspoon of baking soda with you. Stir it in. You don't need to drink the whole glass. In fact, don't drink the whole glass. Just take a few sips until it starts to alleviate the symptoms. So you just want to neutralize that acidic environment that's created in your stomach to get rid of the burning. If it's just a slight burning, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If it's completely tolerable, then you can allow that. It shouldn't be causing you any significant damage at all in your stomach. If you don't experience any burning and you also don't experience any symptom relief, you can start to up it. So in a few hours, you can try 2 teaspoons with 2 teaspoons and just keep adding an extra teaspoon, but allow enough time in between so that you understand how it's actually affecting you. Okay, so I know from experience that it is very easy to just keep stuffing your face with things that you think will help you feel better, and just keep going and going, and it's so easy to go way overboard and overwhelm the system that is already overwhelmed. So absolutely my recommendation is start low, take it slow, notice how it's affecting you, and then use that noticing to make your decision of what you're going to do next. Keep titrating, so keep increasing the volume that you're taking until you reach about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons at maximum at a time, but allow yourself at least in half an hour in between for it to take effect. This is generally how long you will give yourself if you were going to aid your digestion by introducing an apple cider vinegar or lemon juice before a meal. You would give yourself about 30 minutes as well. Now, if apple cider vinegar is just a taste you can't tolerate, or you don't do well with fermented foods, or it's not effective, or it's burning, and you've calmed it down with the baking soda dilution, then lemon juice is the way to go. If you have lemons, it does have to be a lemon from a tree. It can't be bottled lemon concentrate. It's just not the same thing. When it comes to naturally treating things, we mean natural, as natural as you can find. Otherwise, sometimes the best you can do is good enough, but sometimes it's not. The reason that it has to be fresh and whole is because it's a living food with enzymes and lots of activity going on in there, and all those constituents work together in a complex way to interact with your body and to heal and repair and just generally nourish it. That's not something that can be reduced to a concentrate in a bottle that will never go off. Follow the same steps as with the apple cider vinegar, but just with lemon juice and water instead. So that is my advice for you if you are experiencing bloating in the stomach area, not the intestines, the stomach area. So rib cage, where the rib cage is meeting and under the left rib and above. Do not follow the advice in this video if you are experiencing symptoms of digestive chaos, like a burning in your throat or in your chest area somewhere, or some kind of a stabbing sensation in your chest area. If you are experiencing symptoms like that, keep an eye out for my other video where I will be telling you how you can deal with those symptoms. Now remember, don't lose hope, don't underestimate the impact that you can have in your own healing and health journey, and don't underestimate the impact of natural food as medicine. But also be realistic about how long it can take to experience the benefits of it. Just because you don't necessarily experience an immediate effect, an immediate positive effect, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just practice a little bit of patience. If they don't work immediately for you, think about it this way. If you don't use it, you're going to continue to feel sick. If you do use it and they don't give you immediate relief, they might still give you relief down the track. And so there really is no difference apart from the fact that the one way you do actually benefit, because eventually all the work that you've been putting in will pay off, and you will look back and be very grateful that you started when you did. I hope this advice will be useful to you at a point that you might need it. And remember, if it isn't immediately effective, don't give up hope. As always, do not give up hope. Do not underestimate the power of natural food as medicine, and don't underestimate your own ability to influence and impact your own health. Hello. So another 30 minutes has passed. I went and had another shot of apple cider vinegar mixed with water. This time I had about a tablespoon each, and I noticed again when it went down a little bit of burning in my stomach. And what I'm noticing now is still a little bit of burning, interestingly. I am interpreting it just based on my experience, saying that I probably need to go and eat something. I probably actually need something in my stomach. And that's a whole other video around the fact that sometimes symptoms can be misleading. What feels like one thing might actually mean something completely different. And that's why we don't want to get completely hung up in symptoms, because they can actually be counterproductive and take us off track completely. But I'd still put myself at a 3. I wouldn't say that it's got any better. And so for me, what that's telling me is I'll keep my own for another 30 minutes or so, but I don't really expect it to go to a 2 at this stage. What this information is telling me is probably that any more apple cider vinegar is not going to be the solution. It has helped me as much as it probably can right now. What I'm going to focus on now is to avoid food triggers, avoid things that will just make it worse, things that cause stress on my body, things that cause inflammation, things that are difficult to digest, things that might inflame the gut lining, the stomach lining. So what does that mean in practice? It means no more coffee, definitely no more caffeine. Perhaps pull out the dairy for a couple of days. I don't have to go in this moment. I'm not going to have anything for 3 days. But what I'm going to do is the next time I have a warm drink, I'm not going to put any milk in it. And then tomorrow I'll check in again and I'll make a decision from there. I don't have to know right now and decide right now what I'm going to be doing for the next 3 days and then hold myself to it. Because again, that just introduces pressure and opportunity for blame, shame, and guilt. Again, not helpful. So I'm going to take out the caffeine, take out probably dairy. I'm going to try to avoid things that are quite heavy on the digestive system. So those would be saturated fats, a lot of fats, um, proteins that haven't been kind of pre-digested for me. Pre-digested, you. But what I mean by that is something that's maybe in a smoothie form. So rather than have a steak, I might have something that's been either slow cooked, or I might take it a step further and actually not have any meat at all, but instead have something like a protein smoothie from a trusted source, clean source of protein. And I will continue to support my stomach's ability to break down the proteins into the smaller constituents as well as further down the digestive tract, which I will do just with natural medicine, which is apple cider vinegar. So while I'm not going to keep taking it therapeutically to try and address the bloating that I have, I do know that right now I need to be extra vigilant about supporting my digestive system. So that means that I'm going to be taking apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, whichever I have available to me. I happen to have apple cider vinegar. I will be taking that before I eat, and especially before I eat a heavy meal. So we've got avoid caffeine, dairy for now, heavy foods, fats, avoid overeating, avoid too frequent eating. So I've got to allow my stomach to go through the process of digesting the food so that I don't put too much pressure on it to keep continuing to break down food, because I think the percentage is about 25% of our body's energy is utilized by just purely digestion. And so when your body's doing that, it takes away from other areas. So essentially, I just want to support my system as much as I can and not tax it. So right now is not a time to be flippant or blasé about this stuff that I'm experiencing. I'm going to take it seriously because I've been there and back. I know what it can turn into. But I also know from experience that when I got better, I would panic every time some of the symptoms returned. I was so terrified because immediately I was reminded of how unhappy and unwell I was for such a long time. But what I've learned with time is that once you do get your body back on track, if you have little slip ups, if you have recurrence of symptoms, it's not the end of the world. It might feel like that in the moment when you feel really gross. But once the integrity has been restored, those little blips will usually just be a blip. As long as you are not suffering from any other unknown, undiagnosed anatomical, structural issues, or there's something else underlying going on that hasn't been identified. But if it is just that you've been living life large and it's caught up with you a little bit, just take a step back and do what is good and supportive for the body and remove the things that are not. Give it a day, see how you feel, go from there. If you're not feeling much better, give it another day, reassess the next day. If you've been doing this for 3 days, would probably be my cutoff, and you are not feeling any better, then it is time to reassess and consider a different strategy, and consider that maybe there's something additional going on that needs to be addressed.